What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news, and as Bungie announced last week, they've got a couple of new blog posts about Destiny Frontiers, and some of the big changes they're going to be making to the game in 2025. So it looks like today is focused on a couple of specific items. The first one is combatant modifiers and sort of activity modifiers, so there's some new stuff that Bungie are looking to do there, but also extra insights about the future of raids and dungeons. Supporting that content, challenge customization, raid challenge updates, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we'll break down what Bungie discussed today. As always, I hope you enjoy the video, and if you do, a rating really helps us on the channel. But now, let's get into it. And so first up, looking at the combatant modifiers blog post, Bungie give a TLDR right here, and they say, we're investing more than ever before in our activity modifier systems. Activities will be updated with a library of modifiers that can change how you approach combat on every playthrough. And moving forward, combatants will gain varied powers and buffs in order to create new gameplay threats and encourage changes in player strategy, especially for higher challenge levels. And they identify some of the current problems. They say today in Destiny, playing the same PvE activity repeatedly can feel like a chore, especially when chasing a reward or following a narrative. Running through the latest exotic mission the second, third, and fourth time just doesn't feel fun enough to justify the time spent, and eventually we figure out where each enemy spawns, where to fight them, and how to win without any challenge. And this is a component of Destiny 2 we want to greatly improve with Frontiers. And overall the goal is to improve the experience of replaying activity content by adding variety and unpredictability to each playthrough. So to do that, Bungie plan a first-class modifier system, and they say Destiny 2 has added modifiers to activities since the launch of the first Nightfall. But with codename Frontiers, we're investing more than ever into the modifier system to improve the fun and challenging activities. So they'll be creating combatant focus modifiers that change the way players approach combat on every playthrough, and that includes BANES, enemy modifiers, and combat modifiers. Plus they'll be designing modifiers so that they can combine and create a wide variety of experiences, and they plan to reduce the barriers to entry and time to fun by reducing the number of build crafting necessary modifiers and replacing them with new combat modifiers. So first up, they talk about BANES, also known as combat affix modifiers. An enemy unit with a Bane will present a different challenge to players according to which Bane is affecting them. Enemies that spawn with these modifiers appear unpredictably during an activity, so that each run will present a different challenge. And they say here are two Banes that we'll be releasing in episode 2, Revenant, as we start testing out this new system ahead of Frontiers. So we're going to get the first glimpse of this starting in October, and that includes Meteors and Shock. And the Meteors Bane gives combatants the ability to launch solar projectiles that track but can be shot down, and Shock will continuously build up a charge that will discharge on a single target within line of sight, and killing a unit with this Bane causes it to spread to others nearby. Bungie actually show a clip right here of the Meteor and Shock Bane in action, so this is certainly going to adjust combat, as we can see, and these are the ones that we will indeed see in October, but in terms of ones they're working on for the future, there is Berserk, and killing combatants with Berserk causes other combatants nearby to enrage. So it will sort of change up potentially how we actually engage with different types of enemies and in what order we choose to take them down. Plus, there is Punchable, and they say punchable combatants are immune to all ranged damage and damage from status effects until they are hit with a melee attack. Otherwise, there is Nuclear, and once a unit with Nuclear Bane reaches low health, it begins an arming sequence, and if the unit isn't defeated before the sequence completes, it explodes in a massive fiery shockwave. And as we can see, there's a pretty significant blast there, so these look kinda cool. And in terms of enemy modifiers, they say, while Banes will appear intermittently on individual units, enemy modifiers are used to change base aspects of all enemies in an activity. For example, under a certain enemy modifier shipping in Revenant, some enemies may have copied some tricks about booby-trapping their drops from a famous Scorned Baron. So that sounds kinda cool. Then for combat modifiers, they say they aren't just about changing enemies, but they affect players as well. Surge mods are a classic modifier type that has been used for years in Destiny ritual activities, but we've come to realize that too many forceful build crafting modifiers can become barriers for players, so we're working to create new modifiers that are more accepting of varied strategies and builds. Otherwise, they confirm that champions will continue to exist, but they won't be hosting any Banes. And otherwise, many existing modifiers will still be in the game, but obviously there will be a selection process between modifiers we know right now and some of these new elements that Bungie have discussed. So that's the first part for today. Give us your thoughts in the comment section. Otherwise though, Bungie talk about endgame aspirational content, and specifically raids and dungeons. So they confirm they will still be kicking off every year with a new raid, starting with the new raid in codename Apollo that will stack up against the rich and varied histories of experiences in this space, and raids will continue to offer a complete pool of exclusive weapons, armor, and exotics, and these can be obtained at higher tiers by taking on additional challenges. But they say as well they're exploring some unique twists on the raid format, and this is one area that we won't be giving too much information about in the future, as we don't want to risk spoiling day one experiences for the raid race. But they talk about raid feats, and they say the current iteration of master raids and challenges have followed a similar format for a few years, so it's time to change the formula. And with Apollo, new raids will support a raid-specific form of challenge customization, where players can select modifiers called feats. Feats will expose and enforce rules such as time trials, contest combatants, or other mode modifiers unique to the raid, and the more feats active during a run, the better chance to earn higher tiered rewards. So that does sound pretty interesting, more kind of selectivity or options around the difficulty of raids and the potential rewards from them, but also they say there'll be a raid challenge update, and in the first major update following Apollo, the raid will receive a challenge update adding new rewards, new mechanics, feats, and potentially even new encounters. This update will kick off with a raid race event and be a venue for experienced raiders to further challenge their skills. And in addition to the highest tiers of raid rewards being available from these challenges, new and exclusive rewards will be added as well, including new weapons and a catalyst for the raid's exotic weapons. So in a way this kind of sounds like a mid-year update to the existing raid. Imagine if Salvation's Edge suddenly got a bunch of new rewards and encounters in a couple of months' time. That's essentially what Bungie are talking about doing here, so that actually sounds kind of cool, and it's a good way of utilising content which is already there, and is still interesting to players hopefully. Otherwise though, they talk about new dungeons and they say, codename Behemoth, the second expansion of the year, will include a brand new dungeon. So a new raid and a new dungeon in 2025, and because the dungeon will be launching as part of codename Behemoth, there will no longer be a separate dungeon key. Additionally, the reward offering for new dungeons will be expanded to include full weapon and armor sets, with the rewards essentially being on par with raids. So in 2025, the dungeon key is gone, and that piece of content becomes part of the actual expansion, which is cool. So that sounds good too. They also talk about a new rad event, and they reference Pantheon that we got with Into the Light, and they say this event showed us that our community is hungry for new experiences that break out of the mold of traditional raids and dungeons. So in the fourth major update of next year, they're planning for another event that introduces novelty and allows our team to experiment with legacy raids and dungeon offerings to create surprising aspirational challenges. They say they are in very early stages of development for that at the moment, but it essentially means the return of something like Pantheon, which also will apply to dungeon content for the year too. So I think that's a positive on the endgame front, but in the core game they say dungeon content will also figure prominently in the new portal as part of the Pinnacle Ops category, and the portal is going to be the new sort of activity selection director for the game, and several updated dungeons will be available to launch and play with full challenge customization. And while raid content won't initially be part of portal categories, they are exploring ways to incorporate them in a future release. Until then though, new and legacy raid content will continue to be available in their current locations. And so a couple of pretty interesting updates right there from Bungie. Of course they are focused on very specific areas of the game, but for those specific areas, these sound like positive changes moving forward and some fresh ideas. Obviously we'll have to view them in the context of the health of the game in general by the time we actually get to 2025 and those new content drops, but I think as standalone items, most of what Bungie have said there sounds pretty positive. So give us your thoughts about all of it down in the comment section. And that concludes the preview for today. So share your thoughts in the comment section, guys, like I say. Otherwise though, I'll keep you posted on further updates this week. I think Bungie are going to talk a little bit more about Revenant tomorrow in the Twid, so that'll be interesting. If you've enjoyed this video, a rating below really does help us out. Also get locked and loaded here on the channel, and you won't miss out on any new content. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.